So I guess okay. So we haven't Joseph and I haven't talked about episode 9 yet. So let's kind of we'll try to make it somewhat quick. If you guys, I know it was a couple weeks ago, but as far as you remember, where did you guys end up landing with episode 9? Middle of the road, bad, good?
I'll let our guest.
I think I gave it like 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably about in the same range. I mean, my biggest criticism throughout the rest of the show, which I'll get into later when we get more in depth, was kind of absolved in this episode because they just went one for one.
It's
Like-
pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, maybe one thing changed, but for the
It-
most part, it was
there's-
literally like watching the end of the game.
Yeah.
So I thought it was actually very well done. Some of the stuff I was worried about them doing turned out actually pretty good, pretty well done. So
Like I have 3 episodes I'm not the biggest fan of, and then obviously my meandering critique of the whole thing in general, but I really liked the last episode.
Okay. Yeah, I think that 9 and 10 in particular are probably the strongest. But I just watched both of them like 2 days ago. I think so. I'm still kind of chewing through a little bit of my thought on those 2 episodes, but the show definitely seems to be stronger when they continue to follow the actual source material. Surprise. And I think the only thing that I still has been just like this run through complaint that I've had is that they feel the need to turn every enemy into some sort of like sympathetic character. Like,
right.
I would have to go back and watch the whole show again. I'm not sure that anyone that Joel and Ellie ever come across is ever just kind of like bad. Like
Well, they have to give everyone a backstory, like
Yeah.
which is annoying. It's like,
Yeah.
oh hey, the raiders that Joel and Ellie fight in the city. Oh, let's give them a backstory for you to care about them for no reason at all.
and then they forget about him like an episode later, and it's like it doesn't matter. Which is, I think for episode 9, I think that's still the biggest weakness because you go through the whole episode, and then David's group, they're just not relevant after really about half the episode. Like they have
Yeah.
one more scene, like the scene in the dining room with all of them, where he like slaps the little girl, and then they're kind of they just disappear, and it's like, no. Oh, I guess you have the few that like go after Joel in that one part, and you get that one scene that's pretty much one for one from the game that I was really happy that they left in.
It's funny. There's one of the actors that is one of the extras that are looking for Joel, who looks exactly like David from the game, and I was like, why did they just use that guy?
Honestly, I kind of wish they had just brought Nolan North in to do it.
There, that guy. You
That
just
guy?
had him.
Oh yeah,
The guy with the
like-
beard and like the greasy looking hair.
Right.
That dude.
Yeah, I
he
can
looks
see that.
almost
I can
exactly
see
like
that.
David. I was like, hello.
Yeah, their casting decisions have been a little weird. I don't really understand why they needed to turn them into like a religious cult. I mean, I do, as far as the show is concerned, I appreciate the fact that they made a note to that, or that David mentions to Ellie that like the whole religious thing for him, because he talks about how he found God after the apocalypse, but what they kind of are hinting at is that he found it so that he could manipulate all these people. And I appreciate that, but at the same time, it's like we were talking about, they've given backstories to all these people, and then they're gone and we move on.
I wish episode 8 was a 2-parter, because when they meet, or when Ellie meets David, like in the game, you have that whole time period where like the infected show up, and Ellie and him kind of bond with each other, and you kind of are like, oh, maybe David's not that bad of a guy. But in the show, they're just like, oh, drag the deer over there, and then let's kind of talk. And then he's like, oh, you're the little girl that killed one of my men. And it's like so instant that you
Yep.
don't even get a sense of like, oh, maybe David's a good guy.
And that happened. I'm pretty sure, and you guys can correct me, that happens, and then they get attacked, right? So there's not even time to really process the information, right? Or is that after?
Because
I think that's after.
It's after. the
Yeah,
whole
because they
situation.
don't
Okay.
they don't get it they don't even have a conversation before they get attacked by the infected.
Right. They are sitting there kind of by a
Oh,
fire,
8
and
and
then
9. Yeah, sorry guys. This is episode 8, not 9.
I totally gave my review on the episode 9, so the last episode. So
Sorry guys, I meant episode 8. We're on 8 and then 9. Yeah, my brain is off tonight. Anyway,
but yeah,
sorry.
but as far as like the words that they're using, they're saying pretty much right out of the game. But it's just they don't have the ability to add the actual like threats in the TV show. You know, it's like, let's just have some conversations and whatnot, but all this other stuff that we did in the game to actually like increase the threat level and, you know, the enjoyment of the game, I guess we can't do that. We don't have the time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that this whole show was missing that I think would have made it better is just adding more infected. Like the scariest part with the infected, not even just the infected coming out of the ground in that one episode. Like that was okay. I mean, like it was fun, but whatever. But the scariest quote unquote episode was when they're in the museum and they're
Uh-huh.
creeping around the clickers. I was like, "Oh shit, like go away clicker." But like we needed more clickers. We needed more infection and people were
Right.
like or infected and people were like, "Oh, well that wouldn't be realistic and we what you want Joel to take, infected out like Rambo and stuff." And I'm like, "No, I just want it like the game. Like if they can
Yeah.
do it in The Walking Dead where people deal with zombies and stuff, they can do it in this show."
Yeah.
With $100 million.
We had, as far as I'm aware, no Molotovs, no
Nope.
little spike bombs,
No nail
no
bombs.
nail
Yeah.
bombs. There's one of the things that, and I know this is getting into more of like this specific criticism gets into more of like a whole season thing. Joel constantly picks the wrong weapons. I don't know if you guys picked
And he
up.
forgets weapons.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll talk about it when we get to episode 10, but like in 10, he has two options for like the situations that he's in. And as far as I'm concerned, he picked the lesser of the two. He picked like the gun that looks like it was put together in someone's basement very quickly.
Oh,
Like,
in episode 9?
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
9, sorry. I'm gonna end up doing that a ton.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm like, okay, you have an M16 looking gun, and then you have that like janky looking goofy stock
Yeah.
duct tape gun. Why are you going with that, bro? Like there's literally a gun right there that's 10 times better.
That like
All right,
all
so
the
as-
other Fireflies are using.
As kind of a gun nut, to be fair, they both shoot the same round, but the one he picked up is more accurate in single shot mode than the M16 is.
Yeah, but he's in like tiny hallways.
He's only taking 1 or 2 shots at a time, and he's hitting his targets like he has aimbot on.
I don't want to sound like a commenter, but it's like, yeah, because that's how the story set it up.
But also like not to go back to episode 3, but like when they're in Bill's house and like that whole wall of guns.
Yeah.
You're telling me he doesn't want to take any? Like he's just like, no,
I'll
we're not taking any.
yeah.
Like, dude, really? There's so many
That
guns.
cracked
You
me
need
up.
protection.
Yeah, he's got like this
It
wall, this
seemed like
arsenal.
completely unrealistic to
Yeah.
not take quite a few weapons off of that arsenal and
all
that Bill had,
ammo.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it just so many just poor decisions that doesn't seem like he would make in real life. As far as episode 8 was concerned, there are aspects of it that I liked. I just find myself not caring, and I think that's as I was texting you, David, I was calling this a lame show in the sense that I knew it was going to end up being this way. I just had the sneaking feeling
Yeah.
that it was going to be the whole people are the real monsters, and where the infected just wasn't a huge part of the show, and they're just not. Is the last time we saw an infected was what, episode 5 or 6?
I think it was
No,
5,
there's-
right? Before
Yeah.
the last episode, which you can barely count because I think there's one.
Yep.
In the last
And we have-
episode.
Yeah,
In a
and
made up
and it
scene,
re-
by the way. That's totally
and I think-
totally new.
and really it was what, episode 4, the Kansas City episode, where we really got them just very briefly, and as you pointed out, it seemed like they used up all their budget for that.
Yeah.
And but in episode, what was it, 1 or 2, in episode 2 we got the clickers, and they weren't CGI. So I don't understand the aspect of trying to separate yourself. If I'm thinking, and I'm making a show like this, and I'm thinking of The Walking Dead probably being the most prominent zombie TV show, how can we differentiate ourselves from them? And I think making the infected, as I've said, an actual existential part of the show where you still have running that thread of humans are monsters too,
Yeah.
but maybe you have to team up with something like this scumbag to take on some infected real fast, and then you go and you kill him too, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like just more interesting. I mean, I found myself bored.
I mean, you can easily do amazing character development, have like bad people being horrible human beings, but also with that looming threat of the infection. I mean, we have like what, episode 2, like you said, we get the infected in that episode, the clicker, whatever. And then what, episode 5, we get the sinkhole of them, and then episode 7, we get the random clicker in the mall, and that's virtually it.
Yeah, the random clicker that just happened to come awake at the opportune moment. It wasn't.
I mean, like, how much better would that have been to have, like, in the game where Ellie and what's her face are like running from multiple clickers in the mall?
Yeah,
that would have like my heart would have been like ba 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 ba. I would have been like, oh snap, they got to get out of there, not like random homie just like rah, and they're like, oh no.
Yeah, and I think so. And I know again we're getting kind of ahead of into the like, but it's fine, doesn't really matter. One of the problems, and I think it comes back to what you're saying, is that the show doesn't spend enough time with very specific characters. Like I think it was Mahler who pointed this out, but Joel and Ellie don't really get interactions with each other until like end of episode 1, barely. So you have like episode 2. Episode 3 isn't really about them. They're in it at the beginning and end for a few minutes. Dude, I don't even remember episode 4. What happened in episode 4? Is that the first?
That's the PTS mom Karen episode.
Okay, and then so that's like a strong. I guess you could say probably a strong episode for the two of them. But then the next episode is more about Henry, Sam, and the soccer mom. And now what was 6?
And then Kin is the next episode with where he finally meets Tommy again.
Oh, that's right. And that
episode is where they start actually building more of a relationship with each other.
That's right, because that's where you get the famous scene from the game where she's like, I trust you, like I want you to take, like they have that real connection. But then, they're not together in episode 7. Episode 8, they're basically split up. And then 9, which we'll get to. I mean, they're there, but we're at the end. Like,
so we relatively got 3.5-ish episodes of like actual them two bonding together.
Yeah, and from a source material where they spend the whole time together, and you get 9, 10, however many hours it takes you to actually finish the game. All of this different dialogue between the two of them, like these little subtle hints about like their characters. It's very well, like we were talking about it when I was streaming through the game, just with the chat. But it was like there are these little things, these like subtle things that like Ellie will do, or something small that she'll say, and it's done in a way that isn't as blatant as what you get a lot of the time in the show, and that's some of the stuff that's missing. Not to mention that I know it's like a video game or whatever, but Ashley Johnson's performance in the game is significantly better than Bella Ramsey's, and so is oh my god, he's in episode 8. The guy Troy Baker. Like the two of them, it's so like there's such a connection there, and it's so dialed in. It doesn't. It's not there in the show.
So, question for you, because you just brought that up. Because Troy Baker is in the show, and I thought he did a pretty good job for the little that he was in, and he is a lot older now. As much as I love Pedro, do you think they should have just casted him as Joel?
If they had gotten him on like a diet that got him a little beefier.
Yeah, he'd need to be bigger.
Yeah, he's I don't want to say he's scrawny, but he's a tall, lanky guy. I mean, I honestly, I wouldn't have minded that. I just think that you really needed to go for someone that has more edge than Pedro does.
Because I mean, like the fact that Troy is already obviously voiced and physically played Joel, like giving him some muscle would be great. But I mean, like with that hair and like that withered look and the beard, I was like, man, you could easily just pulled off a Joel. Like, I don't know why they didn't use him.
Let me find him real quick. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem necessarily with Pedro. I think for him, the issue is that dude, I
think
still think
Pedro's okay in this. Like, there's something seems to be.
they're directing him
I didn't
to
play the
be.
games.
They're directing him to be significantly less. And this might be controversial. Like, he's a little less masculine.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have that.
Well, he's like the side guy, but he's like, oh, okay, I'll just go over here. I
He's-
guess
He's
I
more
won't.
the
He's a little
tortured
quieter.
soul,
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson Batman type character.
He's the doubting Thomas to the preacher, is what he is. He's like just not really sure what's going on all the time.
we were talking about like Pedro, right?
Yes,
I thought you were
Pedro.
talking about. I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about Troy
no.
Baker right there.
Um,
My bad. You have Troy Baker up there, so
I could see Troy Baker playing him though. I think he would have to he'd have to be a little bigger.
Yeah.
Just to
I mean,
be
like,
able to
obviously they didn't use
that
him because
physical
he's not
presence.
like, a household name like Pedro is,
right,
but
right. I just don't.
I
I don't know
mean,
if it matters
whatever.
for HBO Max, man. I think we're at the point now where so many people just don't care about. Like, if the actor is good, I just don't think most people are going to care. Like, if they're engaged with the story, because I've talked to a lot of people who are, just normal every day. They throw on HBO because they have HBO Max or whatever, and they're gonna watch whatever the new thing is. And a lot of them were really engaged by what was happening in this, and I don't blame them to a degree because there is a bit of the game in this. Like, you can see why someone who never had never played the game, knew nothing about The Last of Us, would sit down and watch this and be like, oh, there's something engaging here. There's something interesting about this man and trying to take this little girl all the way across a very dangerous world. And they're not necessarily going to be paying attention to like every detail from episode to episode.
Not that freaking dangerous because apparently the infected aren't.
Yeah. But
what do you guys also, speaking of Troy as Joel, I know some people also tried fan casting her and people wanted her to, no offense to Bella, I think she did a pretty good job, but I think if they've had Caitlin Dever play Ellie, I would have loved that because I think she looks more like Ellie from the game.
I don't know who that is.
No, I'm not sure either.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, me too.
She was in Booksmart, Last Man Standing, Rosaline.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
She does. I don't know if this is, and it's not really. It doesn't really matter who you get. I think one of the biggest problems they're gonna have to change some stuff when they do season 2. I think.
yeah.
Because Bella Ramsey, and we've talked about this in past episodes. She's like 5'2", I think, and I'm not sure a lot of people are going to be convinced that a girl who's 5'2" that was cast in a role because she looks like she's 14 is going to be able to really take on an entire group of like military personnel in the second game. I mean, they're like that group in Seattle. Is it Seattle, right? They're pretty like militaristic. I have a lot of questions about season 2, just on sort of like a visual standpoint, like how they're gonna make all of this work out.
Well, speaking of also that, like, we also have to bear in mind what they did with season 1, right? Like,
Yeah.
we say, oh, how is Ellie gonna, take on all these people? But Joel didn't take on all these people. Like, Joel is a
Absolutely.
savage in the video game.
Yeah.
Like, he beats ass in the video game. Joel in the show is a pussy compared to him.
Agreed. Yeah.
Until he gets to until
Yeah, until the last
So-
episode, then he actually is Joel from the video game.
Yeah, they
yeah.
give
and
us.
and the scene in this one, where he was interrogating those two guys, that was again drawn right out of the game.
Oh yeah, I love that scene. That was dope.
So I think okay. So there's a couple reasons that I would say that the 8 and 9 are probably the strongest episodes, and it's a lot of what you guys have said about what they finally did with Joel. Because isn't it odd that his like anxiety disappeared? Like, what happened to
Yeah.
that as a plot point?
That's what they go.
He had a
Yeah.
breathing issue, but once you get injected with some penicillin, you turn into a badass all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the thing.
you
That's
pop
what
people's
changed.
kneecaps out. You're just like raving to go. You're back to old Joel.
It's very, very strange, and I think I think his character's a bit inconsistent in that because the anxiety thing came up, and I went, oh man, like they're gonna use this in the last episode as justification for why like Abby's coming after him now. And I mean, the stands are already out there being like, he'll get his just desserts in the next season. I'm like, I can't stand this. I was like,
Oh, did you see someone on TikTok said they see Abby running away in the shooting scene?
Oh, really?
Well, because there's a person you see run away that we can't see their face, but you can see like a little ponytail, and they're like booking it one way, but you can't like visually see their face. And I'm like, and people are like, "Oh, is that Abby? Did Abby see her? You know, her father get shot? Blah 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 blah."
Well, and Laura Bailey.
Well, good. If they kill him off, they'll kill the show.
Yeah, Laura Bailey is in the episode. She's one of the nurses, the girl who does her it's her voice actress. So they
What did y'all think about Bella Ramsey's performance in this? Now,
eight?
I know we're talking about episode. Yeah, I guess we can talk about episode 8. I think episode 8 was better than what it has been, but up until that point, it's still just kind of, you know, like she's been fine, but she's 14 in this. I don't know. I guess they didn't do a good job writing her character as being endearing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was just
more so.
It was very hit and miss.
Yeah,
she's like a leader, like tends to win a lot of the conversations and just randomly able to seemingly lead a lot better than Joel, even though Joel has way more experience than she does. Like, I understand that they're trying to go that whole rebellious teen route, but I don't know.
Okay, so this is the thing. This is where I'll come, because I think I get where you're coming from. One of the biggest missteps is that by the time you get to episode 8, Joel, you should be in a position where Ellie having to go out on her own, because I think Druckmann even mentions this at the end of they do those little like behind the scenes things. Yep. And he was saying that the whole idea of episode 8, when you're talking about where that is in the timeline of the game, by the time you get there, and MGC had been saying this, like Joel has like basically taken on the world for Ellie. I mean, he has gone through so many people. They've been through so many issues. Like you've dealt with the Sam and Henry thing, the Tess thing, all of these different encounters with bandits and infected, and like Joel gets taken out, and you get cut to Ellie alone, and when you play, you go, whoa, what's going on? Like, I'm Ellie now. And it's funny because I don't know if Druckmann's lying or if he has completely misinterpreted that thing from like 10 years ago. But the idea behind that is that, oh man, where is Joel? Like, what is he dead? Because I'm pretty sure you don't know at that point. And you pick up and you're Ellie and you're hunting this deer, and you're like, everything went from like 10 back to a 2 or a 3 on the intensity scale. And with this, you just don't have that. And part of the problem is that they put Left Behind in between when Joel gets stabbed and when you get to the next episode. Not only that, but they just keep showing you that he's fine. Like, yep. Oh, is he going to survive? Is he not going to survive? And so I don't think that a lot of this works because, like Joseph was saying, you have all of these moments of Ellie showing how competent she is long before we get to this. And it's like, what is there to really cheer for when you know she's already kind of able to survive on her own? Like,
I think the biggest misstep they had, again, goes back to showing violence and stuff. The scene or the episode where their truck crashes in the game, to me, I love that scene. I was waiting for that scene. I was so pumped for that scene. And then they showed us in the show, and I'm like, what is this? They're just hiding behind a truck, and there's 2 guys shooting at them. That's it. And then some random dude manhandles Joel. In the game, yeah. It is so like anxiety-inducing. Like they're clawing and grabbing them out of the truck, and they're fighting. And we see Joel holding on to Ellie, and he's like, I got you. And you're like, oh shit. And like they get separated. Joel's having to fight for his life. He kills that one dude. He runs over to Ellie, who gets hit in the face by that one dude, and he just just completely annihilates that guy. And then, you see a bunch of raiders come up. And then, later, obviously in the video game, because, there's some time going on, when Ellie shoots the guy who's on top of Joel, she shoots him in the head and kills him. In the show, they just have him like shoot him in the back, and they have that whole like, oh, we're just playing as he's like bleeding out, and he's like, oh, my legs hurt or whatever. And I'm like, I just don't feel like that scene worked as well. And people were like, oh, how did it not, like, it was showing like the impact and how it, dampened on Ellie, and like that kid was begging for his life. I'm like, that's great. He was trying to kill Joel. Like, having Ellie shoot the guy in the head is so much better than like her wounding the guy and then having that like drawn out scene.
I agree. I was trying to pull that up. I think it's one of my favorite scenes from the game.
Because after that, then we see, Ellie being more badass and taking out, infected and people and stuff. But in the show, we don't get that. So like leading up to episode 8, I didn't feel like Ellie could survive on her own because we don't really get to see that in the show.
Yeah. No, every time I hear David and MGC and Justin describe the game, it seems like they just lessen the intensity and in the show. Like, it's I guess what we've been talking about, David, how everything's more drama focused instead of action focused, and there's not much of a, just what MGC was saying, like it's intense, anxiety inducing. Is he going to survive? Is she going to survive? Are they not going to? What's going to happen? And in multiple rounds. And I think, having Joel be more of a savage, more of masculine David, and more of that father figure. Hey, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I'm not going to take any chances. And, approaching that morally gray area of, well, on one hand, you can see why he did what he did. On the other, not so much. I mean, I think this show is just lacking that spark I was telling you from the beginning, David.
Yeah. And
that just doesn't, it just like, I don't care about the show. I don't care to go back, and watch it. I'm sure we'll watch season 2 just so we can get the views and everything, but it's not a terrible show by any stretch of the imagination. There's great things about this. I mean, it's not Rings of Power. It's not Blood Witcher or whatever. Blood Origin. Yeah. But it's definitely, I'm just. I love
how at the end Joel's actually taking his stuff in the game. In the show, forget about it.
Yeah, there's like, oh, we collected all of this food and hopefully all this ammo. It's not important. I don't need a backpack anymore. Yeah, and I mean, like, you can see from that clip, like, you had a perfect choreographed scene. Why not just put it on film?
And you can't say like, oh, we didn't have the budget for it. Doing a stunt choreography it's not like, oh my gosh, it's going to extend our budget. Like, instead of filming like the lame, like him hiding behind the truck, pot shotting, like it was such a lame camera angle too. It was like, it was like a weird medium shot with like Joel like in the right hand corner, like shooting at the two guys who are barely like even visible, and it didn't even like really like give us like multiple camera angles and like boring like shooting scene. Instead of, we could have gotten like an engaging like fight choreography showing like everything we just watched. Like, I don't understand like the lazy filmmaking. How are you gonna have like two creators of the show working on the film and then being like, oh yeah, that's acceptable?
Did both of them work on it, or was it with just Druckmann?
Well, so Druckmann's the only, I won't say for certain, but I think he might be the only person from Naughty Dog that, because one of the other co-creators, there was like, we've talked about this like a couple times, and I can never remember this guy's name, unfortunately, which kind of sucks, but he got ousted from Naughty Dog, I think, and then when this came out, he was one of the people that helped really get the first Last of Us off the ground. Like, I think he and Druckmann worked pretty closely. Because, dude, at this point, I'm convinced that Druckmann was not the only person involved with the story, with the character.
No, he wasn't.
There's no way, because he does not.
I remember
Craig Mazin.
Talk about it.
Yeah. Craig Mazin was the showrunner. He's the guy who did.
He also created the. My bad.
Know the Russian nuclear plant that. The show about that. I can't remember.
Chernobyl.
Chernobyl, yeah.
So wasn't the other writer for the first game a woman named Amy Henning?
Okay, so I think
Oh,
people
Bruce Straley is
Bruce
the other
Straley.
director.
Yeah. Amy Henning was the writer for Uncharted. So she got ousted around the time that Uncharted 4 came out. This is something like I've talked about with like Jenna and some other people in the chat when I've been streaming games. That industry, I think, is incredibly vicious, like very cutthroat. And I think that Druckmann at some point gained enough power and got enough backing that he essentially took over the studio, because I think he's like co-president with somebody else now. I'm not as up on a lot of that as I used to be, but he has a lot of like sway in the industry at this point. Like he's a darling, I think, as far as that's concerned, which I don't really understand because again, he's one of those guys that I think he thinks he's an auteur. And he came out recently and was like, we're not changing anything about The Last of Us Part 2 for Season 2. And you're like, all right, dude. I mean, like, you can't even consider some of the criticism that maybe you made some
Yeah, I was about to say,
mistakes.
like, literally everybody, like, complained about what happened in part 2. And he's like, too bad, so sad. I'm like, really, dude? Like, really? No?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, oh, you're not even like, okay, well, I could understand why people thought that at the very least I should have moved some things around to make them actually make sense.
Yeah, working in the video game industry is no bueno.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be cutthroat, man. Especially the way Naughty Dog changed during that time period, because really once Uncharted 4 came out, that's when a lot of that, because I think Amy left in the middle of that. And
I don't know how it was to work at Naughty Dog. I worked at Gearbox Software.
Oh,
I don't know if you
did
know.
you really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
It's a very interesting working environment.
Yeah. It just comes off that way.
I worked for Naughty Dog. It was all right.
But yeah, so I just, man, after seeing this too, and Druckmann being so, it's one of two things. And it's all theory because there's no way, because like Druckmann would never tell anybody one way or the other. It's either he gets too much credit for the first game as far as the story is concerned and the characters, which is probably true. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. There was another thing that I was thinking about with that.
Pretty much his shit don't stink. Or he thinks
Yeah,
his shit
it's
doesn't
very
stink.
like everything that surrounds him, I'm very skeptical of. I remember what it was. Or the other one is that he was heavily involved with the original story, hated the fan reaction to it. Like he thought he was creating one thing, and maybe he was kind of like over it, and he had other people who were helping him with the characters, with the story and all of that. And everyone came out and was basically like, "Oh no, Joel did the right thing. Like we're on board with Joel."
I mean, like literally, like, so I haven't played part 2 yet. I have it. I own the game. I just haven't played it because, like, so I got it because I got it for cheap. That's besides the point. But I initially didn't want to play the game because, like, right as it was about to be released, when all that leaks happened about, who dying, I was like, why? I want to punch Neil Druckmann in the face. Why would he do this? This is the dumbest decision you could ever make in a video game franchise with two of the best characters.
Yeah, and she, like, not only did they, I think that a majority of the cast that's in the first game that reprises their roles in the second one, I think just about all of them get character assassinated. Tommy does a lot of really stupid things that I don't think Tommy would do, especially being married to Maria, and the way that she is in that first game. And like she's very strong character. She's very strong-willed, and Tommy kind of knows that if he like does makes the wrong decision or whatever, his relationship with her could be strained heavily. And actually, I think it does end up that ends up happening in part 2. But there's just a lot of weird things that come off as like we have to tell this very specific story that Druckmann had in mind, and it doesn't matter what has happened with the history of these characters. This is the story that we're going to tell. It's like that's what leads to a lot of the choices that Joel makes that don't make any sense. Like I was saying before, Tommy, Ellie makes a lot of kind of odd decisions. There's characters that like show up in this that you're like, there's no way. There's like this whole thing with like pregnant characters in this that are constantly being put in danger. And I'm like, this is the end of the world. Why are you guys doing this?
I was just glad in episode 9 we didn't get another birthing scene in the show. I'm just like, can we please not have any more birthing scenes? Like I know
House
we
of the
saw
Dragon.
enough in House of the Dragon HBO. Y'all love them birthing scenes. But no, as far as episode 8, dude, as soon as they had Preacher Man up there, I was like, oh gosh, he's gonna be some kind of pedo or terrible person. I mean,
Well, okay, so it's and they
I
can.
don't know if I can even say that on
Yeah,
YouTube.
it doesn't matter, dude. We're not monetized.
Oh well.
That is in the game.
We
Again,
get a strike
it's
for that
more-
one.
It's more subtle, right? So David's intentions with Ellie in the game are very subtle for the most part. Like you're learning a lot about what's going on with this group before you're told exactly what's happening. I actually did.
Why is this meat stringy?
Yeah, I did. I did really like because of how like gross it is. So we have like the scene where Ellie and him quote unquote fight at the end. It was fine, I think, as far as an interpretation of what happens in the game. It's not like Ellie's gonna sneak around and stab him 3 times and then it's gonna be over.
Listen, she could, okay?
They
She
could have done it.
She could have done it.
You know what's so
Damn,
funny?
That's what I would just love.
One of the things that's so funny about this is that I think that's what people who disagree with us think our arguments are. Because we had one person who, I think it was something that Justin had said in the Left Behind episode where the person was like, well, what did you want them to do? Crawl around and look for like gun parts and stuff? And you're like, who said that? Who said that's what we wanted? Like, where are you getting this argument from? Like, who's arguing this? That this is the thing from the game that you want interpreted? Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah, that's like when I was complaining about episode 3. People were like, "Oh, what? You just want Joel and Ellie like walking around adventuring, like not like jumping over stuff and like looking through doors and like sneaking around?" I'm like, when did I ever say that?
Yeah,
like,
but dude, maybe
that's not what I asked for.
Like,
Episode
just a
3 was
little.
so-
Yeah, I mean, like a little would be nice,
Yeah,
but
like,
like
give us them,
I'm not
like-
asking for a whole episode of them just like crawling around and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want a whole episode of it, but it would have been nice if they had done something where it's like, I get, okay, they do bring up that she can't swim, never comes up again. It's actually important. It's important in the game.
Yep.
Even
Which
though
they
people
could have done
hated
in
those
episode
bubbles.
9 because she does drown in episode or in the final act of the
Yeah.
game. And they could have, because that would have raised the
Dude.
stakes in episode
Yeah.
9 if we got that whole like them adventuring, trying to get to the thing, and then like that whole like scene in the game where like Joel is like trying to save her and he's almost drowning, and that whole part that would have been nice to see.
I wish they had made David's character a little more subtle, and because this is a line that was different from the game, I'm pretty sure. I don't think he actually says this. But he says the fighting is the part that I like the most, and that's the moment that you're like, this is. I think this is something we've been talking about with the majority of the show. That it's like, and MGC, you said this, like the stakes just seem weird, like they're off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the world's not quite as dangerous and I mean obviously it's a little different with the David thing, and there's moments of like the clickers happening where it hits I think some of those points that we would have wanted it to, but there's a lot of time where it's like they're just walking around in the wilderness and there's nothing happening, and they run into an overweight couple in the middle of nowhere, and it's like what?
Okay, Loki, I kind of like that scene, but
I like it from a lighthearted perspective. It's still just one of those things that's
I
like,
just think it's funny. He's like, "You made him food?" She's like, "Yeah."
yeah.
I will say one of the changes I did like in the show in episode 8 than in the game is when he gives her food and he like Bella, or sorry, not Bella, but
it's cool.
Ellie like is just like, "Oh, you're trying to feed me people or whatever." She's like kicks the plate away.
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
the game,
She eats
like she's like, "I'm not gonna eat that," and he's like, "Oh, it's fine," and she's like, "Okay," and then she's
Yeah.
like scrumptious down. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I like it better that she kicks it away because it's like, nah, I'm not trusting you at all. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care what you say.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think that there are you can have something like that where you make subtle changes where even people who are diehard fans would have been like, "Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, why on earth would she ever trust this guy?" And I actually think that
Right.
her interaction with David in that scene is some of the strongest acting that Bella does in the series. It just hits right, and I think part of that is because that's the character that they've kind of made her. Like she's that, for most of the show. We don't get a ton of like the lighthearted Ellie stuff, and the stuff that we get honestly feels kind of forced. Like, you remember when she's in the hotel? I think it's in the second episode, and she's like talking to thing. It just, all of that for whatever reason doesn't totally strike me. I think the stuff that worked where like she's in the car and she finds Bill's magazine. I think that still played off pretty well. But it's hit or miss with her. And
I mean, it also doesn't help that, like, for example, the whole Henry and Sam scene, that they made him deaf. Like, so she didn't really get time to like really act off of him. Like, she's just kind of like, oh, I have to like write on this little board, or kind of like try to talk to him in a certain way. Like, I just don't understand the changes that they made.
Yeah. Also, it was a really weird one right here where Joel doesn't catch up to her until she's outside the building, instead of just getting there like right in the middle of her like hacking David to death.
Would you have preferred her or him busting in and grabbing her off of him, or how they did it?
Yeah, I think so, because the whole thing has like died down by the time he gets to her, rather than him getting her. And again, I think this goes back to this whole thing about Joel ultimately being the protector for her. And it's like that moment, he snaps right back into being that thing for her. Where she's walking outside, it's already over. She's like beginning to process the situation, and then he shows up, and it's like, it's just not as dynamic, you know.
I did like that scene. Now that you're saying it, I do agree with you. That would have been nice if he like pulled her off, but I did still think it was pretty sweet when he's like, calm down, I'm here, baby girl. And I'm like, okay, that's, that got me. But I do agree that it would have been better if he was inside the building pulling her off.
Yeah. And it's just kind of an odd, like, it's just one of those things. It's like, it's an odd change. Right. Like, the scene could have been exactly the same. Like, of course the building is on fire, but like in that moment,
how did Ellie get out so easily? Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, right.
she was struggling to get out, but after she kills him, he's just like, oh, he had keys on him. Never mind. Maybe she used those. I don't know. Whatever.
Wait, didn't she go out
she could break the
door he came in?
Yeah, but he locks it. He mentions that he locks the place up. Let me find it.
And I don't know if you noticed, but in the game they only allude to it, but in the show, like, we actually see him like go to like pull down his pants while he's like on top of her.
Yeah. And I there's part of me that again thinks the show is not as subtle as it could be, just for the sake of like, oh man, like what
I think they just like in the show, I think they really just wanted to drive home how bad he is.
Yeah.
Because like in the game, we're just supposed to like, oh yeah, he's bad, but in the show they're like, oh no, let's show you what he's trying to do.
Yeah. But he makes it pretty clear. That's the thing, is that that part where she's still locked in the cage, he very much makes it clear what his intentions are. And it's quite a bit more subtle in.
I like that they showed the dead bodies in the show, because in the game we didn't see that.
No, you can walk by him. You can walk by him in the game.
Yeah, Joel.
Really? Maybe I just was walking too fast.
It might be missable. But yeah, Joel walks into a freezer and there's a whole bunch of corpses like hanging upside down.
Yep.
And then I think Ellie, because Ellie knows ahead of time before she gets captured, and I can't remember. For whatever reason, I can't remember exactly how she comes to find out about that. It's because David's like partner is cutting a body up when she wakes up in the cage.
Yep.
Before he comes in. So it's not just like an ear on the ground, like they're literally like chopping a dude up. And I'll give the show, I know we've been kind of like crapping on it a little bit. I still have to give a lot of the people who worked on the set design, who worked on even the clickers and everything, even though they're not as prevalent once you get past like episode 5. But the cinematography is still pretty good in this. I know it's not great everywhere, but there are a couple.
I'm honestly so curious how they did that scene that we're looking at right now.
Yeah. Just like him being like shadowed like that. There's a couple shots in episodes where like they're riding into the sunset that I really liked, and It's there, and the quality is definitely there. I'm not a big fan of, and we talked about this in that episode, I'm not a big fan of the lighting in the Left Behind episode. It's very, like, neon and a little overbearing, I think, in a lot of that. That's probably the smallest of criticisms for that episode, because it's just like...
How much
There's a
fire
lot.
do you think was actually on set compared to like digital fire?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. It's pretty convincing, man. I mean, I can't imagine that they allowed the two actors to be in a building that was on fire at the time, unless it was totally controlled in these areas. I don't know. It might not be real. It's kind of hard to tell.
So Whoopa said he didn't care if it was accurate to the game. The bad religious figure is ridiculously played out.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's.
So I do agree with that, but they never. The only hint that they had about anything religious to this group was the sign. The "He shall provide"
Well,
sign.
He talks about it. He's reading.
Yeah,
he reads out
Revelation.
of scripture. Yeah, out of Revelation.
in the show he does, but he doesn't in the game at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There
yeah. In
there
the
is
game,
there
it's
is
not-
there is no like allusion to any type of religion in the game except for the sign in the mess hall.
And I think
That the signs are identical.
it's possible that was supposed to be talking about David, and that he is like they're clearly they're going for like a culty mentality with them, but the "He shall provide" thing might be specifically talking about him as a figure, like a leader figure in that. Like, I don't think I would have taken immediately like, oh, he's using like Christianity to fool these people into eating eating people.
Oh no, but he basically came out and said he knew like a certain amount of verses and stuff to control the people,
Uh-huh.
and he didn't
Yeah.
believe. He thought the cordyceps was a religion based on the little
Yeah.
snippets he was saying,
And
which got like it was That dialogue was interesting,
Yes.
but still very weird.
I kind of liked that. I don't know if I really needed it to add to David's character, but the idea that someone would be like, well, have you ever thought of the cordyceps like this? And you're like, oh, that's nuts, but also I see what you're doing there. It's interesting.
So was David
Um,
also like a major creeper predator before the apocalypse? He claims he was a teacher. Who knows if he actually
Which
was?
makes it even worse.
So that,
Right.
yeah, he might have been that. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to pick up on.
And then it seems like when you're watching the scenes with the people in the mess hall, like they all seem a little scared of him. Like especially that one girl whose dad died.
Oh, dude,
Was he doing what to those kids, those girls, what he was about to do to Ellie?
Yeah, it's possible.
I think
I mean,
that was kind of the implication towards the end of what was happening. Like by him saying the fighting is what I like the most, he had done that before.
Oh, definitely.
So
The thing I think is weird that you mentioned, because you said like do they like you said like they're freaked out in the mess hall. That made me think of, why are all these people following him? Because even when he says go find Joel and kill him if you really want revenge, a lot of those guys are just like because he tells them like, oh, bring the horse, and like they're all just like kind of like, do we really want to do this? Like, if everyone's questioning his authority, why are they
Yeah.
following him?
Well, they might only be questioning his authority now, as the few of them are starting to suspect he's feeding people to them.
Well, I don't, because he did say that some people knew, and I think it's a stronger case in the game because they're clearly prospering to some degree with the method that they have.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
oh, David's providing for us. He takes care of us. We'll do whatever he says. He's like our leader, and I don't know if the leadership aspect in this is as strong, because even his like right-hand man starts like questioning kind of his intentions, because they're going through like a rough patch, and it's just sort of like, this is what I was kind of saying earlier, where they do this thing where they start giving you more detail about this, and it kind of hurts the characterization of like this group of people and what they're doing there. Instead of being kind of this strong threat, it's like, well, they're also kind of struggling, and they've like found this way, and like, do they really believe David? And it's like, he's not, in that case, like, it does kind of take away from his threat just a little bit, Not to mention, dude, when Ellie runs out of that room after she kills the dude, he has a gun. He shoots at her like 2 or 3 times, and then he just gives that up and finds like a hatchet to go after her with.
Oh, you mean the jail cell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe because it's the apocalypse, he only had like a couple bullets.
he had a couple bullets, and that's it.
all they had left.
But it's so weird. Also,
I'm gonna use these on the. Oh shit! I ran out of bullets. Never mind.
a little disappointed that they didn't just give him a machete like in the game, and he it's like she stabs him once, she gets away, and he goes, "Oh, it's personal now," and then he pulls out the machete. Just like I don't know, it's some of that is very much just. I've said since we started reviewing these that I'm incredibly biased towards the games in just about every aspect, and so it always makes me wonder like why didn't y'all stick to the thing that it's like from a visual perspective it's pretty cool that she gets a hit in on him and then he starts to take it really personal, so he's like, all right, I've got a knife too, and he's like basically he doesn't say that, but he pulls out the machete to come after her with, and ultimately that's his downfall too, so it's like I don't know. Would have been nice.
That's always like the weirdest complaint that I hear from people who like anytime I've made a video and people like I compare it to the video game and they tell me, well, if you like the video game so much, go play the video game, stop watching the show then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, clearly I'm assuming you haven't played the video game. I love the video game and I want you guys to experience what I've experienced by playing the video game, and I want you guys to have such a good story and action and stuff like that. That's all I'm asking is for them, like, it's right there. And people are like, why would you want a shot for shot recreate? I'm like, why not? Like, it's live action for a reason. Like, don't get me wrong, if you want to add some like little flashbacks, like I love the flashback I think in episode 2 where we go like before the infection and like they have that panel of doctors or whatever. That was a fun flashback.
Sure.
And like the added scene to the first episode, like that we didn't get in the original game, I like that. That was cool.
Yeah.
But like there's spots where it's like you can easily do it shot for shot. I will eat that up every day, all day. And the people who haven't played the game, they're not gonna know the difference.
Yeah,
so it's
gonna
gonna just
too.
benefit the game players who are gonna be like, oh my gosh, they're actually doing that. Like full send, like episode 9, like what do you call it? Momo said, like. That there's so many scenes in there that are like really, really close to the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so why would we want these people who haven't played the game? It's like they're getting mad at us when we make those comments, right? Why do we want to inflict upon them a subpar version of what the original was?
Yeah.
Like, don't get mad at us that we're upset that this is subpar. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. Like, it's fine. If this had come out the way it was and no game had ever existed, I'm sure everybody would be goo goo and gaga and drooling over it.
Yeah.
But there has already been a version of this that is vastly superior.
Yeah, and it's even we had talked about it back when episode 3 came out. I would have been fine with episode 3 if we had gotten one episode that was about Bill, Joel, and Ellie. Like the 3 of them going through what happens in Bill's town.
Yep.
Like, honestly, what I think, like, one, they should have a Bill's town, not that little, like, gated off community. But I would, like you said, I would have been fine with episode 3 if, like, not half, but I think, like, maybe a quarter of the episode, maybe half, was the flashback that we saw. And it didn't, like, cut to them being old. I thought that was stupid. But it could cut to, like, the very end of the flashback could be Frank.
Yeah.
Yep.
It could be Frank like getting mad at Bill and just being like, I'm leaving. Like they just have a fight, and then it cuts back to Joel and Ellie, and then Joel's like, yeah, Bill's in here, we have to go, and then that would have given us the really cool refrigerator scene where he gets trapped and flung upside down, and he has to like knock off some infected while Ellie's trying to like cut him down. Like I would have loved seeing that scene.
Yeah.
And then the whole interaction with Bill and Ellie, like we totally missed that. And I'm like,
and it's really good too. And
it's really good.
Like, yeah. We're like, oh, but the episode 3 was so good. I'm like, yes, but it would have been so much better if we got what was in the game.
Yeah. And then I don't know, you can like end that, like there's a way to combine the two. And it's just a really, I think 3 and 7 in particular, 3 and 7, yeah, 3 and 7 in particular. I mean, that's borderline a quarter of the season.
Yep.
And dude, episode 3 is long.
Yep.
Like I think it's
It's
close to
the
an hour and a
second longest.
half. Yeah, and it's just like, and then they're trying to pull like, their Twitter identity politics on everyone and not actually listen to the criticism of like, why is this episode 3? Like, where is Billstown? It's like all the stuff that you were talking about, all the interactions that Joel, Ellie, and Bill have together, where you're getting to learn about the characters. Ellie gets to be like really sarcastic and snarky. He's like, don't touch that stuff. And, they go through the whole, like, that whole situation. And maybe you have Joel asking him about Frank a little bit, and he's kind of like, I don't want to talk about it, or da-da-da, and then you find a way to weave in that story still.
Yep.
And dude, honestly, I don't know. You could just like, it just seems ridiculous to do it in a first season in general, both Left Behind and that. And if you're going to do it, you need to make the season longer and give us more time with the actual characters that we're supposed to be invested in by the time we get to episode 8 and 9.
Yeah, like I felt like there are too focused on flashbacks and like building characters that made no sense. Like episode 4, Please Hold My Hand with the fucking soccer mom.
Yeah.
Like you build up this character that again we don't care about, because when you think about who that character or whatever is even supposed to be, they're trying to give a face to the asshole raiders who attacked Joel and Ellie in the city. I don't need a face to these random ass raiders who killed, what's the government group again?
Fedra.
Fedra, yeah. Who kill Fedra and they take over the town. I don't care about the soccer mom and her military second in command, which
And
I
her
think he should have been the
brother,
boss.
and-
But
yeah.
yeah, and then the random like that scene pissed me off in episode 5. She's like, people die, like your brother doesn't matter. It's like your brother's old. Like I'm trying to save a young child. Like how dare you say like, oh, kids die all the time. I'd be like, fuck you, bitch.
And that whole thing just it falls flat. And they spend a lot of time with her, and then like remember she like kills the doctor.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Like we
you're
spent
just
2
like,
episodes with her just for her to
oh,
die.
yeah.
Like,
And-
okay, cool.
And that whole thing could have been Joel and Ellie, Sam and Henry. They could have spent time in Kansas. It's fine that they switched to Kansas. It's not that big of a deal. And then the second episode could have been them going through that tunnel where Ish and all of those survivors lived. And you not only are you getting like a main story and you're spending more time with Henry and Sam, building up that relationship before the tragedy happens, but you're also getting a bit of a B plot about a group of people that live down here that were doing well, and then tragedy also struck them. But we don't get that. It's like, hey, like they even say it in the after the show thing where they're like, a lot of the people who play the game are gonna know what the sewer means, and it's like, yeah, but anybody watching the show has no clue. It means nothing to them. It's a set piece for 10 seconds before we move on to something else. It's just really unfortunate, and that hurts especially because I think, especially back when that game first launched, the whole like Ish thing and that scene where you're going through there and you're learning about that, especially at the time, that was really, really good storytelling without actually having to play through the events of that. So it sucks that they were just like, it's not that important. It's an Easter egg. We're moving on. It's like, come on. Yeah, not necessarily happy with some of the decisions they made on that end. But let's talk about episode 9. I know you guys mentioned it before. How was this one for you guys? Like strong? Not so strong?
Like 8. I only have like 1 complaint, but yeah 8.
Yeah, and I've already given my review on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I texted you mine. Lame show.
Oh, bro, I don't know.
Lame episode. And no, I mean, like there are parts of this episode I really enjoyed. The ending, like when Joel actually was like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to protect Ellie.
Right.
I enjoyed that, but I just find myself indifferent. I was more so, can we just please hurry up and finish this so I can just be done with the season? I mean, The Walking Dead first few seasons, 2, 3, 4 seasons is better than this. I mean, hopefully season 2 gets better, but probably not.
So random question, because you just brought up that I actually had an interesting idea that they could do, which, could fall on its face easily, knowing HBO and Neil Druckmann. But I feel like this would help us believe Bella is older in part two. So have season two not be part two. Like, don't do the game, right?
Yeah.
Season two is like something completely original and fills in the void between the two games. So not only does this give us time for Bella to get older, and I know she's 19, but she still looks young. But it gives her time to get older, but then it gives the video game watchers something that we can't be like, well, that's not like the game, because they're giving us new content,
Yeah.
but possibly giving us content that we actually want to see. Now Ellie and Joel, they got out of there, and now we can see like what happened between that and part two.
Do a season in Jackson, or do like a season where it takes place over, what is it, like the 8 years between. So like, you could pull like a House of the Dragon season 1 and just have like time skips occasionally. So it's like people are getting older.
And
you
wouldn't have
to
to
characters.
You wouldn't have to do some of the stuff that was flashbacks in
do what they
part two.
Yeah, do what they probably should have done for part 2. If they were going to
Who
keep those
knows?
characters around.
Maybe we'll just get a completely alternate history.
Dude.
So
It's not gonna
with
happen.
season or with episode 9, question for everyone. I just want to see if we're all on the same page. Is Joel right with his decision?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
I would do it 100 times out of 100 if it was
And
my
not
daughter.
not only that, but Joel would have done it 100 times out of 100. It almost doesn't matter like whether we believe that he would have done it or that we agree with him. It doesn't matter, because that's what he was gonna do. Like, that's what it leads up to, especially with the game. Like, there's not really another choice.
Is it believable for his character to do?
Yeah, and it is.
Like,
And
the weird thing is there's discussion on internet, of course.
of course.
I mean, it happened when the game came out, but like I'm also getting it in the comments on my video. I'm seeing it in TikTok videos. People are being like, Joel was wrong, and I'm like, are you guys on crack? Like, are you a Firefly apologist? Like, what is your problem?
They're
Joel is
trolls.
100% right. Fuck the Fireflies. Fuck Marlene. Like, y'all are crazy.
So it's a really interesting discussion, because I would have to know exactly why they think he made the wrong decision. And my first guess, because all I can do right now is guess, is that they would be like, well, her sacrificing herself would have given a cure for the vaccine, or like it would have given a cure for the infection. It's like, well, first of all, let's talk about it from the show's perspective. The infected aren't really that much of a threat.
No.
Like, if you're in certain areas, like you're pretty good at this point. Like they've
I mean, because it's not
shown
like the
that.
game. The infected are not running around like the video game.
Right.
Can I drop a quick theory?
Yeah, go
I've
ahead.
formulated it this week. The reason they went with 20 years after the infection began is so that they could use that as a reason why most of the infected are gone.
Yeah. Well, so apparently, now I don't know if it's that way in the original game, but when they did part 1, like they remade it, they made it 20 years.
It was not. They had to have changed things in that game.
See, that's where
I'm
I
telling
can't
you.
figure out if it's Mandela effect or if or if it always was that. So now I need to actually go back and look at the remaster and see if it's different than the.
You got to go
full
all the way
remake.
back, bro, to the original.
Yeah, I need to go find a copy of the original game. I'll get it off eBay and I'll check.
'Cause I'm telling you,
I'll
there was
boot up
something.
my PS3 version and check for you.
There was a recording in the original game, and in my mind, it 100% said that they had other immune people, and they always failed trying to recover this.
Yeah.
And people tell me that never happened. And the recording in the newest game says that she is an individual. No one has ever been like this, and this is their only hope.
Yeah. Some of that's probably I would bet it's somewhere in between. I think some of it's probably Mandela. It's still, here's the thing though. It's like it still doesn't matter, because the people who are complaining about that are saying that like Joel shouldn't have done that. He should have let her go or whatever. The Fireflies weren't just going to give that to everybody. Like, are you kidding me?
Nope.
Yeah,
It makes no sense.
So I wanna drop something on you guys. I've been like after the episode came out, I was like, because the discourse of like, is Joel right? Is Joel wrong? Whatever. So here's like, because I was really breaking it down in my head, and I was like watching some theory videos and whatnot. And while we all agree that Joel was right, I'm trying to like think of like what in the world can these people who say he's wrong, right? And I'm like, there's literally nothing. So here's my thought process of why there is no conclusion that you can come to saying that Joel was wrong. Maybe morally wrong, killing people, whatever. That's on you for saying that. But let's think about it in a logical standpoint, right? The infection started in 2003, correct?
Yeah.
So, they have only medical equipment that is from 2003.
Oh,
We are 20 years into the future, right? There's no medical advances. The medical equipment hasn't gotten better because it's from back in the day. And when is the last time this guy did surgery? When is the last time this guy made a vaccine? When is how decorated is this doctor? How well versed is he in fungal whatever? And the beginning of the show, they literally say there is no cure for fungal stuff. And in real life, there is still no cure, and we're in 2023.
Right.
So you're telling me that
that's a
this
good point.
doctor, out of all the doctors in the world, somehow can extract, he believes he can extract the thing from Ellie and then create a vaccine that is virtually impossible, a 0.001% chance of it working, to then use it on the rest of the people.
Uh-huh.
That's so idiotic. Like, you have crappy medical equipment. You have like B-rated nurses who probably have never even stepped foot in an operating room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all are crazy. There's literally like 0% chance of it actually working, even if you do. So you're literally killing a young girl. On top of that, Marlene doesn't tell Ellie, hey, you doing this procedure, you're going to die. They just put her under.
Yep.
And then telling Joel, hey, yeah, we're going to kill Ellie. They don't tell Joel. They're just like, oh yeah, she's going to operating, she's going to die. They don't even let him say goodbye. On site. On site, everyone's dead. Like that. Like Joel is so justified for killing everyone.
It's it's really weird. And you made me think about something. So in the show in particular, I thought, and I was gonna go back and check, but obviously I haven't had time. In episode 1, I thought Marlene said that she didn't know Ellie. Like, I thought that their original interaction, they acted like they didn't know each other.
I think she was trying to keep it on the DL that she didn't really know her.
Oh, okay. Still dumb. They should have just done it from the beginning. Because, like, I was wondering, because this episode, it's like, oh, Marlene did know them. I was like, but I thought Marlene said this, and it's... So, yeah, it's very possible that's the case. But I don't know why they decided to change that.
So Marlene, the woman who has known this child from the day she was born and has sworn to protect her, but is also the #1 terrorist in the world at the moment, has decided that the best thing to do to keep this girl safe that she is in charge of is to put her in the hands of the people she is trying to bomb on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's weird. Because I don't think, well, Marlene was like keeping an eye on her. I think she gets put into like the Fedra school, because I think that happens in the game too. And it's probably the best place for Ellie to stay safe and not actually with the Fireflies, because obviously they're like murdering people and blowing stuff up. The thing I kind of thought was interesting, and I think I'll have to go back and kind of compare it to the end of the game. I think Marlene actually I think she's like stupid optimistic about Ellie being able to cure this. Like, I think she completely believes it. And
for sure.
I mean, like, it's like, because a vaccine is only going to work for people who are not infected. Like, you're not curing this. Like, they're still infected out there. So, like, unless you start injecting everybody. Oh, sorry.
And they're not going to do it.
Me.
They'll hold it over people's heads in order to get their way.
Yeah, that also reminded me. So let's just say, hypothetically, right? Let's just say the doctor was able to create this magical vaccine, right? If word got out that the Fireflies had a vaccine to cure the infection, not only would Fedra march their pretty ass all the way up to have a war with them to capture it, but Raiders would hear about it. Other people everyone would be flocking to them, being like, can we have and it would be hell. That vaccine would get destroyed easily. There would still be no cure because it would be wiped off the face of the earth because everybody would be fighting for it.
Yeah. I have to wonder too why no one, and obviously I guess it was probably just a product of its time, but that nothing slipped with any of the Fireflies that Ellie is like potentially this cure for the infection, and she wasn't herself being fought over. Like
But
it
they
is a little
didn't.
weird.
They didn't know that. Are you saying like through the course of the game after Joel got her? Because it wasn't like they knew she was an option as a cure until after she got bit, right?
Right.
Or in the show, did they know that because
She's
of the
bit-
way the beginning starts?
You know,
I mean,
don't
I
know.
think only Marlene and like maybe like one or two people knew about Ellie, and then maybe
Okay, that's
you know,
fair.
obviously she told the doctor, but like they're trying to keep it like close niche. You know, somehow nobody like
I'm
opened their
telling you,
mouth or
yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. I'm telling you, somebody probably found out because like the Fireflies, and I've talked to people in chat about this before, just when we were playing through the game. The Fireflies are really incompetent,
Oh yeah.
like unbelievably incompetent, and so it's this very weird thing. And you know, going back to some of that other stuff about Joel, going through all of this. It's like I don't really understand how people look at the Fireflies and go, the Fireflies are the baseline or morality in this world. That is why Joel, because it's kind of like you were saying, like that's why Joel is wrong, because someone in this world has to be like, I guess they're almost putting like their morals on other people in the world, where they're like, well, it's obviously true that she could have saved the world and he should have allowed that to happen, but it's like, the moral of the show is that really nobody is that good. Like they're all kind of terrible people, and they're all trying to survive in their own way. Like they all
I
they
mean,
all
if
do bad
it wasn't
things.
Joel and Ellie, they would have died. Like Fireflies would have just killed them.
Yeah. So yeah, and I don't know, but yeah, I mean, like ultimately, I think it's like Joel not only made the right decision in that moment, but he made the decision that makes the most sense for his character. Like if he had just given her up, it'd have been like, what? Like what was the point?
Yeah.
Like what was the point of showing his like everything before about him not being able to save his own daughter, and then he's put into this situation, and then he's like, nah, yeah, have her. Like what?
And the
Doesn't
chat
make
makes good
What-
sense too. How are they supposed to mass produce it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, dude. The world of
just-
the world of The Last of Us, especially with Part 2 coming out,
It's confusing.
it's the world building's a little broken in places because you have like people on the West Coast in particular that seem very well organized. Vehicles are cool, like they don't have a problem. It's like Fedra's not really a thing. From what I guess the games imply, like they're more of a West Coast or an East Coast thing. And you have different factions depending on where you are in the United States.
Not only that, but like,
Yeah.
you know, is the FDA gonna approve it? You know,
Yeah, of course. The
I mean,
Fireflies.
we got to
are
worry
the
about the FDA, honestly.
They are the FDA. The Fireflies are the FDA.
then what about
now.
all the stock? You know, gotta get that money.
Man, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still probably. I think episode 2 and then 8 and 9 are probably, if not the strongest, they're definitely my favorites. But I think that's because they're so 1-for-1 with the game compared to a lot of the other stuff that we got.
Episode 1 and 8.
From what I remember, I gave, or I'm looking at it right now, I gave episode 1 a 9 because I love how virtually close they copied that opening scene with Sarah. I love that. Episode 2, again, was very close to the game for the most part. I really liked everything in that. I liked episode 6. I liked the whole interaction with Tommy, and like that scene where Joel and Ellie have their little conversation in that room. That was probably like their best interaction for the most part. Like, you know, she's like, oh, you know, like no one's ever cared for me. Everyone who I'm around dies, you know, like, and then you're here, and he's like, you're not my daughter. I'm like, and then probably the last episode.
Yeah, I feel you. Justin?
I
Justine.
definitely think can you not hear me?
No, we're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I definitely think the last 2 episodes were probably the strongest, but I go back to, again, they used the source material well
Yeah.
and didn't kind of branch out into places that really weren't that important in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
I think
So-
we're seeing a theme here is when they do the source material, the episode's good.
Yeah.
Right.
It just
I kept wanting to say that episode 3 felt like a really great episode of This Is Us.
You're
And
kind of right.
and
That's
like
perfect.
so that's all I can think about now when I think about that episode.
I know. I'm just really upset that Nick Offerman didn't actually get to really play Bill.
I know
Yeah,
exactly.
and then it was just so funny to me. He's like this big time prepper and seemingly knows his way around firearms and everything like that, and really intelligent gentleman, right? And then he gets in a fight with raiders just standing right in the middle of the street. you know?
Yeah.
Oh my, that whole scene was so annoying.
I mean, it just. I mean, that's more
So
of
great.
a-
And then he tells Frank, "Don't worry, my traps will kill all the raiders." And I'm like,
Dude,
"Then
the
why
Raider-
were you?
Yeah. It's only
Why
because the
were
Raiders
you in
were
the middle of the
stupid.
street?
Yeah.
You know, firing at him. Why not? I still understand firing at him, even if the traps are gonna kill him. But it's just
The
and that
Raiders,
episode's the weirdest episode out of this entire season for
Mhm.
sure. And I think there's no point to it. So to me, that and episode 7 are, I don't know.
Well, it's
I have to really think, but
Yeah.
the worst episodes in the sense of like I can see the point in episode 7. Episode 3, there is no point. It is inconsequential,
I
and so
think they went about it the wrong way again because there's stuff in that I think is really strong. I think the letter that Bill leaves, I like that.
mhm.
There's
I enjoy the acting in it.
Yeah, there's stuff that's cool about because I wanted more Bill in this. I think we had talked about this, Joseph, either in the first episode or at some point before the show started, something like that. One of the things I wanted to see was Bill and a bit more of a dive into like who he was. Maybe we get to see Frank. Maybe we get all of that.
You
But-
wanted the longer bed scene, right?
Sure, yeah. What I wanted was for it to end the same way it does in the game because they're like The Last of Us has always been a tragedy. It's tragic. It's still tragic. Like what Joel has to do at the end of the game. Like there is a part of you that probably shouldn't feel like completely on board with with what he's doing, even if you believe he's justified, even if you know, like there's still a part of it that's like everything about The Last of Us was always supposed to have just like, forgive me for saying this, but like a little bit of ick to it. Like there's just, you're like, everything in this, and then you get those like moments where like you see the monkeys on the college campus, or you get the giraffe, or you have the moments of like Sam and Ellie playing together, or is it Henry? I can never remember.
Henry.
Is it Henry? That's the younger brother?
No, it's Sam.
Whichever one of them it is, like you get the moments of them like playing soccer together and doing these things. So there are little bits of like hope and little bits of light, and you get a little bit of that from some of the younger characters, or whatever, just like whatever. You get a lot of that through Ellie's eyes in the game in particular, for this world that is very much murder, mayhem, terrible people doing awful things to each other. Even Joel's got this history. And I just don't think the show like fully goes into that. And then to have episode 3 where everything, at least for Bill and Frank, just ends really nicely. It's tied up in a bow. They're like, hey, the only thing you don't need to do is just like go into the room where we have decided to die. It's like it's odd. And again, I'm super biased towards the game, so when it really comes down to it, it's like, why didn't you flesh it out specifically to make it line up with what happens in the game?
Yeah,
It's
I would have
very
preferred if Joel and Bill ran into Frank when he hung himself.
Something, yeah, and you can do like give us a backstory episode after we've been introduced into Bill. You could have made it like an episode 4 or whatever the case may be, where they.
I mean, like, because even if they have to, like, that still would have had the impact because we would have gotten the good backstory, and then like he just thinks Frank like fucked off somewhere,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
as they're like trying to go get the battery, they run into him, and he's just like, "Oh fuck!" And he's like, "Do you know him?" He's like, "Yeah," and then I would have been like, "Damn,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sucks."
'Cause you
But
could
the
have
show
been-
is just like, we're gonna die together.
Right.
I'm
And-
like, give me a break.
Yeah, and you had the
So-
whole thing where he's like, yeah, he was my partner. And like you can tell that Bill's bitter about the situation, but there is this sense of like, and this is something I've actually mentioned to people. One of the things that's cool about the game is that Bill is the kind of guy that the only way that he would have someone around him in that world is if there was like a love interest involved. Like if there was a deep connection to that person, because he hates everybody. He doesn't want to
Yep.
be around everybody. He's super bitter towards everyone. He's like, this is my area. You need to leave me alone. We'll trade, and that's about it. Like he seemed to have like, I think even in the game I think there was like a little bit of a connection with Tess. But he's still very like just can't stand people. Sorry, Josh.
Is the kind of like general consensus that they might have Game of Thrones themselves and not done enough episodes?
It's possible.
Like,
Honestly, I
did
thought,
they by saying we are going to complete the entire first game in 9 episodes? Did they
could've
just not have enough time to really flesh it out the way that would have made it, a couple ticks higher on the score meter?
It's possible. They did the one Game of Thrones thing didn't do the one Game of Thrones thing that I thought they were going to do though, at the end of episode 9.
So I'm curious, now that we're finally here and we've seen this,
Yeah.
what were you anticipating them doing for the ending?
Oh, I thought they were going to go straight into the beginning of part 2.
Oh, like
That-
that he was going to do everything he did at the hospital, but then
Here's what I don't know exactly how they would have pulled this off, but it's weird too because this is the shortest episode. I mean, the stuff with Ashley Johnson at the beginning of it like lengthens this, I think, beyond 30 minutes.
basically, yeah.
But they I thought what they probably were going to do was have this happen, right? By the way, I'm sure everyone who watched the episode noticed how they lingered on the doctor for quite a while after Joel just unceremoniously takes him out. I thought they would do like a time skip. They would do they ended it just like the game, cuts to black. Maybe you get a so many years later or whatever, and you get essentially like Abby taking him out. And like leave because you could have done it in a way that would have made a lot of the people who like aren't us essentially who don't know what happens, and it could have been this like holy like what you know what I mean. But all of us would just been like, oh, they did it. That's what I thought they were gonna do, and like basically and a Ned Stark on him in season 1.
I mean, because they do end the show like they ended the game, though.
Yeah. And I thought they were going to go a little further than that.
Oh, okay,
that was my theory. I was incorrect, and I guess I have to give him some credit.
Okay, so I haven't played part 2. How far into the game do we see that unfortunate part?
Half an hour?
And half an hour
dang,
to
really?
an hour.
It's that quick?
Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
half an hour to an hour, depending on how fast you play the game.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's
Oh my
wild,
gosh.
dude, it is. And that is a long game. So like you're sitting on that for I mean, that game's got what? It's got to be close to 15, 20 hours, depending on how you play it.
So, AK, I'm just full on. I want to kill Abby the whole time I'm playing the game.
Oh, do you know what happens though?
No, I don't.
You play as her.
I heard that you play as her, but like,
Dude, not only do you play as her, you get all the way up to the end of the game as Ellie, and then you jump back in time to play the whole scenario again from Abby's perspective.
Why do I want to play as the person that killed Joel?
I think what they're.
Oh my god, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
I forgot that you have to go back and watch it again.
You go through.
That's the last
so
thing I want to
much,
do is
dude.
play as the person that kills one of my favorite video game characters.
The funniest thing about the second game is that the thing that
Sorry, red chat.
everyone. Oh, the thing that everyone like pretty unanimously was like, oh, I liked these parts of the game is the stuff where you're playing as Joel and Ellie again. It's like flashbacks to like what happens before that whole thing. There's like 2 or 3 of them, I think. And everyone's like, oh, I really liked those parts. And it's like, yeah, it's because that's what everybody liked about The Last of Us.
And there's the one part that they play together that in any normal scenario with any other video game characters, it would be like the most boring thing you've ever played in a video game.
Yeah.
When they go to the space museum, but the two of them interacting together makes it so much fun.
Yeah. They're great together.
Yeah.
I've never seen a video game where they force you to play as the villain.
And-
They don't just force you to play as the villain in this game. They make you do things you don't want to do the entire game.
Yeah.
From both sides.
Yeah.
From as Ellie, as Abby. The whole game is basically like a you don't want to do this, hot, you have to. Or you're not
Yeah.
going to continue. You got to do it. Do
There-
it. Do it.
There are
Thoughts?
there are a lot.
Please
of,
tell me it's a cutscene that you do the thing to Joel, not us having to press buttons.
No, it's a cutscene.
No, it's
Okay,
just
good.
a
I'm about to say,
cutscene.
but, like, I
yeah.
refuse to press buttons.
I think you pick up as Abby after they return to Seattle.
Hmm.
I think because there's like
Yep.
Ellie leaves and then you pick up as Ellie in Seattle and then the time jump back is to the same moment when I think Ellie arrives. Something like that. I haven't played the game since it came out, so it's not super fresh. Again, which is one of the reasons why I want to play through it again because like you were saying, there's so many people on like TikTok and it's going to spill over into YouTube at some point and be all over the place with all of these like quote unquote fans of The Last of Us 2 who are just going to start spewing all this nonsense about those games, and I want to have it fresh in my mind so I can be like, you're wrong, here's why.
Is there an
I'm-
actress you have in mind that you want to play Abby?
That's a good question. I don't.
Gina
There's
Gina Car-
there's
Gina
this
Carano.
person.
Yeah.
I'm looking up fan casting. There's an actress named Shannon Barry. She looks kind of like Abby.
See, the thing is like, so they have two versions of Abby, where like one of them is Abby around the end of Last of Us, original Last of Us, and then you have She-Hulk Abby,
Yeah.
who
Hulk.
somehow in this post-apocalyptic world is able to look close to what a CrossFitter would look like in that situation. I mean, she's just like she's beefy. I mean, like, it was one of those things that like when part 2 was coming out, everybody thought Abby was trans, and she's not.
Yep.
Is Abby not trans?
No, she's
No,
not.
she's not.
It's
Oh,
like,
literally the whole time everyone was telling me Abby was trans.
no,
Right.
she's not.
So it had come out that there was a trans character in the game, and everyone assumed it was Abby until they actually played the game and met the trans character halfway through the game.
And that's like
Oh,
this
Lev-
total throwaway.
Lev is the trans
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's totally like throwaway.
Well, so then there's
plot.
two. There's two. No, he's like a binary character because there's another trans character
Yeah,
in the game.
the
The girl.
yeah, the native, or I don't even know the best way to describe this character. The idea, though, what they were attempting to do, I wouldn't say to be fair to the game, but like to I think this is what Druckmann was going for, was to show Abby and this child as being Joel and Ellie, and that you were now going to understand Abby's plight because of her now coming together with a Ellie-like character in the time that you're playing as it. But it's like, but you're still forgetting the fact that Abby murdered everyone's favorite character. Like, you just
That's a picture of Shannon, by the way, in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not going to type what I'm going to type
Oh,
just in case
jeez.
David pulls it up on screen.
That's her. I mean,
I mean,
I see that a little bit, but I mean, like,
Well, I mean, obviously she would have to get fit, but
yeah, I was going to say she needs to get fit.
oh, I don't know if that fully came up for everybody.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Oh no.
Oh, hey,
Yeah, she definitely has the face though.
Yeah, I just completely like
RIP in the chat.
R.I.P. Yeah, just like this is why I cleaned off my background.
Hey, it's complicated. Welcome in the troll room.
Oh, this is what I was going for. There we go. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, Abby's like, she's a character.
Not a good one, but a character.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, and I'll be able to articulate this a little bit better once I go through the second game again, but one of the things they do with Joel, and this is why I say, like I was saying, they character assassinate a lot of the people that you love from the first game, is that Joel, you know, when he meets Abby and her like group or whatever, he's just kind of cool with them. Like, doesn't seem very suspicious. Isn't like, well, you're not from around, like, because Jackson in that area, it's pretty abandoned, so like they would know everything going on around that area. Like, they have patrols, they go out all the time. They're a very tight-knit community, and all of a sudden this random band of people come together, and Joel's not like, maybe we need to like not be in this situation. And not only that, but I think he actually saves her before all of that happens. And part of me's like, I don't even know if Joel would do that. I don't even know if he would take the time to like do any of that. Not to mention that a lot of it is very coincidental. Like, they can't really stop to have a talk because they're being chased by infected, because of course like the infected are there when they need them. It's a lot of like really weird stuff at the beginning of that game that very much forces you into that scene within like that however long it takes to get to it in that first hour or so. And like Ellie's just like screwing around with her girlfriend, and it's very weird and kind of just an unfortunate way to start the game. I mean, I don't know how, Justin, I don't know how you feel about the situation, but like I don't know if I'm even necessarily against them having ultimately killed Joel off at some point. I think a lot of it just has to do with the way that they go about it and how ceremonious it is, and like he's not, it's just out of character ultimately.
It just seems like he has a character flips in both the show and in the game that don't really make sense, and it coincides with the end of the TV show and the beginning of the second game. You know, you're right. Like, he's not just going to randomly tell someone his name.
That's right.
Not who he is. He's not just like, hey, I'm Joel. Well, welcome. I'm a smuggler from Boston, and I've killed doctors.
Yeah,
like,
by the way, I've killed a zebra-loving doctor from over on the.
Like that's. Do you
think they should not kill Joel?
I think Pedro Pascal is a big reason why people are watching this show. But at the same time, Ned Starking him is also a good way to get some ratings. So I don't know whether or not I think they should or shouldn't, because the story for me of Joel ends unfortunately in The Last of Us 2, because that's what I know.
Right.
That's the hard part.
So weird. That actress is like stuck in our little chat bar.
Yeah, I keep seeing it. Like,
that's got to be your new thumbnail. Her face.
I'm like, is that David's new celebrity crush?
It's because it's still up on the Discord thing. That's why.
Okay. And it also seems like at the end of the 9th episode, not the end of the 9th episode, but in the 9th episode, when they're walking like through Salt Lake City before they get captured or whatever, they're just having like a jovial conversation. You know, he's got like laughter
at all.
Like, you're not paying attention. He's got like laughter in his eyes that you haven't seen for 8 other episodes, and it's like all of a sudden he had a character flip where he's like this like happy-go-lucky pappy again, and like he's got his daughter back and everything is great, and he doesn't need to worry about all the things he's had to worry about for the past 20 years.
Yeah, and he really should have been able to switch back and forth pretty quickly.
I mean, he did when he found out she was about to die. But that was really what it took for him to like get serious.
Yeah,
it was funny that scene that you just showed when you're scrolling through where they're climbing up. I was like, oh look, they're actually finally adventuring.
Yeah, that's true. It's it's very rare. You get that I think in episode 2 as well, where Tess gets put through the rubble or whatever. I think she's the one that does that. But you're right, they do it very little.
Well, that whole scene was right out of the game, all the way with the ladder. Like, you get the ladder and she drops it and runs away, and you got to pick it up and shimmy on up the roof to go find her playing around with giraffes.
Yeah,
honestly, the fact that Joel never went to a workbench and worked on a gun, I'm just kidding,
dude. I
agree with that. Like, that was a cool part of his character, that he could. But he was mechanically inclined enough to fix things and do stuff like that. We never really got that.
And it's super satisfying in the remake.
Oh yeah,
Like
it really
him
is.
putting together like all the weapons. Like there were a couple people in the chat during those parts. They were like, "This is the best part of the game."
Oh, and we didn't get a flamethrower.
we didn't get a flamethrower. We didn't get a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Joel was not great about picking up certain weapons.
So is that also like the worst CGI giraffe you've ever seen?
It was, but I like that part.
That giraffe is real though.
Okay.
No, I mean, like, did you see the behind the scenes?
Oh, was.
No.
It couldn't have been all real though, right?
No, it's real. Go look at the behind the scenes.
I must have missed that when I was watching it. They did. I'll
Well,
give them
then-
that though. Especially if that's true. Other than a couple times where they used a fake horse, barring the one where they have to like kill the horse, they use a lot of like real sets, like real animals in certain points. Like when they go into not the hospital, into the hotel in the second episode, and there's like a frog on the keyboard, and there's like ducks swimming around in the pond. You're like, oh man, it's really nice to just. I mean, they could have just used CG. It's really nice that they didn't, and that there's some practicality to everything that's going on in the show. So.
All right, the giraffe may not be CG, but the green screen behind it
It's
is.
definitely that feels like it's pulled right from the game. That they were just like, "Hey, we're gonna throw that in the background."
Yeah, let's save a little bit of money and we'll just pop this screen here. Load up your PS5, and we'll just get a nice angle of it from the camera.
So what's y'all's opinion on the entirety of season 1? Do y'all think it's something you go back and watch, or do you think it's eh?
I mean,
Or-
I'll just go back and play the game, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I hate to say
honestly.
it. Like at this point, I would tell people now. I need to go check to really. I need to look into it a little bit to see if like the 10-year versus 20-year thing is real, and then whatever the other thing Justin said was. But at this point, I would probably tell people to just, if they have a PS5 or if you have a decent enough PC, just pick up the remake and play through that,
Mhm.
because it's almost one for one the original game, and you get better graphics, and they update a little bit of the control, like not too much to where it makes the game easy, but like there's certain quality of life things that they did that it's like, oh man, it's really nice that they did these
Yeah,
things.
they just they
Yeah.
added some of the stuff they had put into the second game.
Yeah.
I mean, when I bought the remake. I'd already played through the game at least once before when it first came out, and then I bought the remake, and I played through it probably 3 times, just in an effort to get the platinum trophy, and I had no qualms about doing that.
Yeah.
Like it was so much fun to play through. I mean, I didn't watch the cutscenes, and yeah, by the 3rd time I was playing, I was running around with unlimited ammo and unlimited crafting and all that stuff to really make it fun. But it just was so good. Like look at that crap eating grin on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Like
This
when
is so stupid. I hated this part.
like when did he
David,
do
you got
that?
a photo, like screenshot that, and I'm gonna make that be my new avatar.
Okay, I'm gonna use. That's the face I'll use for the thumbnail.
It's like
too.
it's like he turned into the Pedro Pascal from the Nick Cage Pedro Pascal meme that's showing up all over the place right now. Have you guys seen that?
Oh no, it's not responding.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
the-
from the unbearable weight of talent or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that meme is all over everything right now, and all of a sudden, this is the Pedro Pascal we get
I thought
at the end of the season.
It's very it's weird. I think Pedro. Listen, I think Pedro did fine in the role. I think ultimately with the show, like, am I gonna watch it again? Probably not. I have no like. That's the thing is like, as
Don't have any
someone
need
who has
to.
played the game multiple times, I have no need to watch the show again.
No, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's literally no like you have a masterful game or the vanilla version of the game, but in a 9-episode show. It's
Yeah.
like it's a very easy option to pick. Is just play the game. I mean, like I saw someone mention it earlier in the chat. Like I much rather watch The Walking Dead season 1 again. I haven't watched that in a while.
I haven't
but
either. Oh my god.
I rather rewatch that again than rewatch this first season. Like the first season, The Walking Dead was really good in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was
I agree.
filmed like around the corner from where I used to live.
Were you a zombie?
No, but that
Oh.
building, the building they use as the CDC in that
Yep.
is a it's like a performing arts area. They do like comedy shows and music and stuff there. And I lived like maybe 10 minutes from there. So
Pretty cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal in Atlanta. Like, I remember one time I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and he said that like he gotten a call from one of his friends, and a buddy of his was like pretty wealthy, and he was hanging out with Earl, or like whoever the guy was that got his hand cut off in the show.
Dale.
Is that who it was?
It was in the old band.
I can't remember. He got the claw hand, right?
Yep.
But yeah, he was like hanging out with him and some other people at like a party or whatever, and he was like in a hot tub. I don't know. It was a weird time. Man.
Whoa,
Yeah,
that story got fun.
That show, yeah, that show, like, I don't know. I met someone who was like a location scout for it too.
Cool.
for one of the counties or something like that, and she got to go out and do all that. It was cool. I mean,
Well,
So I have one last question for
okay.
this episode that on my notes. Will this show win any awards, and what ones? Which ones?
Maybe for production design, set design.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it wins a lot of that stuff, I have no problem with it. I mean,
Will Bella Ramsey get nominated for an
Probably.
award?
Honestly.
both her and Pedro will probably get nominated. Now, of course, we don't know what else is coming out this year, but I would doubt that either of them win.
I feel like she is being like steamrolled through the process to get an Oscar at a really young age, or not an Oscar, but whatever,
Like an Emmy.
whatever. Yeah, an Emmy.
It
Like they're trying to make her the next big thing.
yeah,
I don't
but
have a
it's
problem with her. It's just like the acting and from her in this show wasn't really that compelling. I don't know if it's her or if it's more so of the writing. But I mean,
it just
most of the
depends,
time it's
man.
just blank stares from
Yeah,
her.
because I was gonna, like,
Yeah.
episode 8 when they put her in the cage and they had her do that thing, like she breaks David's finger and she's
Yep.
like,
That was really
my name's
good
Ellie.
acting.
Like that stuff worked. I was like, this is great. But then there, like I said, there's other times where I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, and again,
Have you guys seen anything else Bella Ramsey has been in?
just
Just Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the bad
Where she was-
the bad season of Game of Thrones.
Where she was like just an angry little child who just screamed.
And people
and-
liked it. and
What
it was
season was she in Game of Thrones? I stopped,
8?
or I'm
Yeah, she was in the last. She was
7
Leon.
and 8, I think.
okay.
One of
'cause
the more months.
I'm a little bit past the Red Wedding. I still need to catch up on
Oh
that show.
shoot, yeah. Well,
Don't judge me.
no, it's fine.
Well, hey guys, I gotta wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And it's getting
Hmm.
late for me. Are we close to being done, or is this just a good time for me to drop out?
I mean, we can be close to being done.
Okay.
Wait, Justin, did you have a question? What was the question you were asking?
The question was, would the show be nominated,
okay.
win, or receive any awards or anything?
Nominations, like I think it's a shoe-in for a lot of the set design. I think they're going real hard after a lot of that too. Like you can see it in the after the show stuff with them talking about like them with the makeup for the clickers and the bloater and that whole deal. Pedro's like a darling in Hollywood right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets at least nominated. And they'll throw one at Bella, but I would honestly be shocked if she like wins like Best Actress in a television show. One, because the show started really early in the year, so we have a long way to go. This is a big problem that a lot of games like have as far as the game awards go too. Is it typically now Elden Ring was the exception last year, but typically if you're like really early in the year, the problem most of those things run into is that people just forget about it by the time voting comes around for those kinds of things.